What's crack-a-lackin', my peoples, how you doing? I'm Jerry Quickly, and this is happening. Oh yeah, it's going down. It's going down. You know, after the 3-week wait and the release of the heavily redacted Mueller Report, here's what's clear. Donald Trump was correct when he said, "I'm fucked. This is the end of my presidency." There is so much to get into today about the release of this heavily redacted Mueller report. No matter how much they try to spin it, this is an unmitigated disaster for Donald Trump. There's never been anything like this in the history of the United States, the Republic. It's on like Donkey Kong. You know what time it is. That's why you tuned in. That's what's up. It's going down for sure. Also, if you're going to be in Los Angeles on April 19th, tomorrow, April 19th, definitely come through the world stage tomorrow night. I'm going to be performing with my friend Reagan. It's going to be off the chain. We're going to be performing this record that I created last year called American Fool. And like I said, check out, it's the world stage, Leimert Park. You can go to worldstage.org. You can get tickets there. I'm doing 2 sets, one at 9 and one at 10:30. It's a celebration. Come through. This record is in large part my cultural and artistic response to these Trumpian times. I recorded this record prior to Donald Trump being a real threat and through the campaign and when it was over. So anyway, come through world stage tomorrow night, April 19th. Without any further ado, let's jump into it. Let's get it all crack-a-lackin'. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's go through some of the big takeaways for today. The biggest takeaway is that Bob Barr is I don't know how to state it more simply. Bob Barr is filthy, lying scum operating as a mob lawyer for the president and not as the attorney general. And he was revealed today with the release of even the heavily redacted Mueller report. It was very clear that Bob Barr's summary that was given weeks ago exonerating the president, oh my God, what is in the Mueller report does anything but exonerate the president. And Attorney General Bob Barr kind of, took it a little bit in with both barrels in the face today at the press conference that he gave, this unprecedented press conference that he gave at the White House in advance of releasing the Mueller report to Congress or the public. So, again, this press conference really blew up in Bob Barr's face. Let's give a look at this footage from the White House press conference earlier today. Okay, you dumbass. That was not Bob Barr. That didn't even look like Bob Barr. You're just so stupid. All right, let's give a look. Dude, yes, I understand that. Yes, it was a cartoon, but it didn't even look like Bob Barr. Let's give a look at Bob Barr, Attorney General Bob Barr at the White House press conference earlier today.
Attorney General, we don't have the report in hand, so could you explain for us the special counsel's articulated reason for not reaching a decision on obstruction of justice, and if it had anything to do with the department's long-standing guidance on not indicting a sitting president? And you say you disagreed with some of his legal theories. What did you disagree with him on?
I'd leave it to his description in the report, the special counsel's own articulation of why he did not want to make a determination as to whether or not there was an obstruction offense. But I will say that when we met with him, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and I met with him along with Ed O'Callahan, who is the principal associate deputy. On March 5th, we specifically asked him about the OLC opinion and whether or not he was taking the position that he would have found a crime but for the existence of the OLC opinion. And he made it very clear several times that that was not his position. He was not saying that but for the OLC opinion he would have found a crime. He made it clear that he had not made the determination that there was a crime. Yes.
Or did the special counsel indicate that he wanted you to make the decision, or that it should be left for Congress? And also, how do you respond to criticism you're receiving from congressional Democrats that you're acting more as an attorney for the president rather than as the chief law enforcement officer?
Special Counsel Mueller did not indicate that his purpose was to leave the decision to Congress. I hope that was not his view, since we don't convene grand juries and conduct criminal investigations for that purpose.
Senior Democrats in Congress have asked for Robert Mueller himself to testify. Robert Mueller remains a Justice Department employee as of this moment. Will you permit him to testify publicly to Congress?
I have no objection to Bob Mueller personally testifying.
Mr. Attorney General, it's not just Democrats who have questioned some of the process here. A Republican-appointed judge on Tuesday said you have, quote, created an environment that has caused a significant part of the American public to be concerned about these redactions. You cleared the president on obstruction. The president is fundraising off of your comments about spying. And here you have remarks that are quite generous to the president, including acknowledging his feelings and his emotions. So what do you say to people on both sides of the aisle who are concerned that you are trying to protect the president?
Well, actually, the statements about his sincere beliefs are recognized in the report, that there was substantial evidence for that. So I'm not sure what your basis is for saying that I am being generous to the president.
You face an unprecedented situation. It just seems like there's a lot of effort to go out of your way to acknowledge how this.
Well, is there another precedent for it?
No, but it's unusual.
Okay, so unprecedented is an accurate description, isn't it?
Yes, but
Okay.
what do you say to people who are concerned that you are trying to protect the president?
Eric?
There's a lot of public interest in the absence of the special counsel and members of his team. Was he invited to join you up on the podium? Why is he not here? This is his report, obviously, that you're talking about today.
No, it's not. It's a report he did for me as the Attorney General. He is required under the regulation to provide me with a confidential report. I'm here to discuss my response to that report and my decision, entirely discretionary, to make it public, since these reports are not supposed to be made public. That's what I'm here to discuss.
Yeah, so there's Bob Barr, feeling feeling his love for the press is quite unrequited at this moment in time. And this is Bob Barr is a scumbag mob lawyer. That's exactly how he's operating. It doesn't matter if he has the stolen title of Attorney General bestowed upon him by a completely corrupt party of white supremacists who rammed this mob lawyer down our collective throats. Now, I knew for sure that the Mueller report was going to be bad. I knew it was going to be really bad. You know why? You know how? Because I got my copy of the Mueller report early. That's right, I got it early. I got my Mueller report because I didn't want to wait, like all the other hicks and mountain folk. Let's start breaking down the report little bit by little bit. There is a national security analyst at CNN named Carrie Cordero who couldn't believe how Bob Barr hung himself out to dry with his performance at that press conference earlier today. Let's watch Carrie Cordero, national security analyst at CNN, describe exactly how Barr hung himself.
We're gonna look at what is the factual scenario that the special counsel laid out, and was the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General's judgment as a matter of law correct? And so we'll be able to see that. But I have to say, the Attorney General had an opportunity this morning to rise above the politics and to adhere to institutional Justice Department, just sticking to what the process was that he was supposed to talk about and which he said he was actually talking about. And he blew it. I mean, he just came out, and to say that the president took, quote, no act that deprived the investigation of witnesses or documents when, as Jeffrey just said, the president, like other presidents have in the past with investigations, been willing to be interviewed by the special counsel's team, in addition to all the things that the president tweeted against witnesses and people who were involved in the case that could potentially be taken by them as aggressive or intimidating. It's just not a true statement what the Attorney General said just now. And that piece, he should have stuck to the process, because on the process, he actually is being consistent with his commitment to transparency. We'll see the report, but he says he's giving most of it to members of Congress, even the information that is redacted in the public report. Congress will then be able to go and challenge the 60 information in court if they choose to. So he should have stuck to the process.
Now, surprisingly, even a super accomplished mainstream hack like Jake Tapper completely backed up Cordero's assessment by saying, "Hey, she was kind of pro mob lawyer, pro Bob Barr before this."
And we should point out, Carrie, that before the press conference, you were praising Attorney General Barr, saying that if he does what he says he's going to do and just outline in the spirit of transparency, executive privilege, the interactions with the White House and the redaction process, it's great. You were applauding him.
If he I have given him the benefit of the doubt. If he would have stuck to the actual process, then I think he would have risen above the politics of it, and he would have been able to say that he is just performing his role as Attorney General. These gratuitous statements about the media, the gratuitous statements about the way the president has been impacted by the investigation, that was completely inappropriate for the Attorney.
So let's go through at least, some of the big takeaways here. Continue to step through this list. Mueller couldn't find enough evidence that Donald Trump was smart enough to realize he was breaking the law by accepting Russian assistance for his father's campaign. Well, it's kind of bull in a lot of ways, because there are you only don't get arrested for something if you're not smart enough to realize you're breaking the law when you're rich and white, because there are poor people all over this country. Black, brown, Asian, white, of everybody. Poor people all over this country that are arrested every day for breaking laws that they weren't smart enough to realize were a law. So Donald Trump Jr., for the moment, gets to skate. I say for the moment because they're going after the Trump. Southern District of New York, as well as the State Attorney General of New York, are going after the Trump Foundation and the Trump Organization, as well as its individual members. There's people, including the CFO, Alan Weisselberg, who've been offered a CFO for the Trump Foundation, chief financial officer. He knows where all the financial bodies are buried, how they conducted their business over 30 to 40 years. Alan Weisselberg has already gotten a deal and taken immunity. So there's no way that this ends and the Trump Organization is still standing. They're absolutely going to be taken down, possibly with a RICO prosecution, but not while Bob Barr is there. They're definitely not going RICO while Bob Barr is in charge. But my hope is that Bob Barr is impeached, and he's impeached rather swiftly, and we move on from this moment of horror. So there's a distinct possibility of RICO prosecution being handed down on the Trump Organization, as well as individuals in the Trump Organization, as well as Trump Foundation. And there's also, even if it's not a RICO prosecution handed down from the Southern District of New York, the State Attorney General of New York is going after the Trumps because Pulitzer Prize-winning work of the New York Times exposing the various fraudulent tax schemes that the Trump family, foundation, and company have engaged in for some 20 to 30 years, that there's records for, that in which the Trump family has stolen over $400 million from the state of New York. And guess what? New York wants its fucking money. So the Trump Foundation, the Trump Organization, and individuals, their problems are just beginning. They're literally just beginning. Even if Donald Trump Jr. managed to skate on this particular charge at this particular time, he is not out of the legal woods by a long shot. You understand what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? All right. Hope Hicks thought that Hope Hicks was communications director at the White House, was, close confidant of Ivanka Trump. And she believed that Donald Trump Jr.'s emails regarding the efforts that he engaged in to set up a meeting with Russian lawyers looked, quote unquote, really bad. But Donald Trump told her to cover them up, even though she recommended to him, like, hey, these emails should be published. We got to get out in front of this. Trump said, no, cover it up, because that's his instinct. Also, Hope Hicks' involvement, which was revealed in the unredacted parts of the Mueller report, reveal that she was in contact with a Russian the day after the election, and this Russian that she was in contact with wanted to put Donald Trump in touch, not Donald Trump Jr., Trump, who was just elected president hours earlier. Hicks was in contact with a Russian the day after the election who wanted to get Trump in contact with Vladimir Putin. So what did Hicks do? She relayed this request directly to Jared Kushner. And according to the Mueller report, and this is a quote, Hope Hicks said to Kushner, can you look into this request that this Russian that wants to get Trump in contact with Vladimir Putin? Hope Hicks to Kushner, can you look into this? Don't want to get duped, but don't want to blow off Putin. The contact with the Russians was so continuous, so relentless. There were literally hundreds of contacts with Russians. It's like they were throwing all their big guns at Trump. I think there was a coterie of Russian oligarchs all running a part of a Kremlin operation or running their own independent operations to see who was going to be able to contribute the most to the outcome that Vladimir Putin wanted, and Trump was just completely open for that whole thing. Now, Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, also, it's revealed in the Mueller report that Manafort expected, quote unquote, Mueller says Paul Manafort was a Trump campaign chairman, and Paul Manafort expected his Russian intel-linked deputy, a man named Konstantin Kilimnik, to share internal Trump campaign polling data with, quote unquote, others in the Ukraine and Deripaska, although Manafort claims not to recall that specific instruction. Let me, break that down a little bit. Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort expected his associate, this Russian, Konstantin Kilimnik, he might be a Yuki, I don't know, who has suspected ties to Russian intelligence, to share internal campaign data. So specific campaign data, granular data on voting habits, where people are located, exactly what their likes and dislikes are, granular polling data only available at that level to American political firms and a handful of social media companies to some degree. Paul Manafort took Trump's private polling data and gave it to the Russians with an expectation that this internal campaign data would be shared with an oligarch to whom Paul Manafort owed millions of dollars. So Paul Manafort was paying off his debt to a Russian oligarch with Trump's internal voter data. Why would Trump's internal voter data be worth millions and millions of dollars to the Russians unless they planned on using it? And so fell the last veil. The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to rule the world. Okay, but let's, keep moving. Move past that. Trump also, the Mueller report states that Trump's personal counsel sent a message to former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn's attorney, reminding him of the president's warm feelings towards disgraced Flynn and asking for a heads up if Flynn's attorney knew information that implicates the president. Okay, I want to read that one more time because it's just, it's shocking. I want to restate that for y'all one more time. Trump signaled to former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn that he might pardon him. Okay, and he did so. In exchange for the pardon, he asked for a warning before Flynn would testify against him. The Mueller report states that Trump's personal counsel sent a message to disgraced National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's attorney, reminding him of the president's warm feelings towards Flynn and asking for, quote, heads up if he knew, quote, information that implicates the president. Done. You're done, son. You're coordinating. You're floating pardons and coordinating a defense and asking for heads up. You're done. 18. If this was anyone other than Donald Trump, there'd be no discussion. And the only reason it's being discussed is because once Donald Trump is ripped from the White House by whatever process or legal means are employed, once that happens, the Republicans simply can't allow it to happen because they know that as soon as Trump is ripped from his bunker in the White House, that the next thing that's going to happen is the crowd is going to turn, and once they're done dealing with Trump, they're going to turn and look at the Republicans and say, and now you motherfuckers. So Trump is the firewall and he is the lightning rod and the firewall that stands between the elected Republican Party members and an unbelievably pissed off and angry electorate. Without Trump providing cover, all of that political anger, that outrage, that political power in terms of fundraising and at the ballot box, all of that ire, outrage, focus, and resources get directed on the rest of the white supremacist scum that run the Republican Party. In addition to Trump, that conversation that was had between Michael Flynn's attorneys and Trump's attorneys, Trump also instructed Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to add a line clearing Trump on Russia in a memo that Rosenstein was drafting to justify Comey's firing. Okay, so Rod Rosenstein, before firing Comey, was instructed to add a line to the memo. Trump's such an idiot. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was instructed by Trump to add a line clearing Trump on the Russia charges in the memo that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was drafting to justify Comey's firing. No collusion there, no obstruction there, no, none at all. It really is incredible. The Mueller report says that Trump instructed Rosenstein to put something clearing him on Russia in a memo he was drafting to justify the firing of Comey. So they all knew that was a motive. But Rosenstein's memo ended up citing concerns about the FBI's treatment of Hillary. So instead of... They're all done. You understand? If you all these people were singing Rosenstein's praises when, he's this great guy, he's this great guy. The first thing he did was become Trump's thug and henchman and attack James Comey. Now, Comey should have been fired for a whole bunch of other reasons, but the only reason that Rosenstein was doing it was to service Trump. All right, well, in addition to all of those issues that were in the Mueller report, Trump tried to obstruct justice on many occasions, but his underlings refused to carry out his corrupt requests. The Trump instructed the White House attorney Don McGahn to go to the Justice Department and tell Rod Rosenstein to fire Mueller. The Mueller investigation is underway, being anchored by Bob Mueller, and the president told White House attorney Don McGahn to go to Justice and tell Deputy Attorney General, who was overseeing the Mueller investigation, Rosenstein, overseeing the Mueller investigation, tell him, done. Fire Mueller. Well, McGahn refused to do it because he didn't want to go to jail. So he went to the White House and he packed up all of his stuff. And when McGahn was willing to quit over this, Trump backed down. But the fact that Trump instructed the White House attorney to fire Robert Mueller is more evidence of what has occurred and exactly what went wrong. Mueller believed he had the authority to issue a grand jury subpoena for Trump, but knew it would delay the investigation. And the Mueller report says, while we believed we had the authority and legal justification to issue a grand jury subpoena to the president, we decided not to do so in view of the substantial delay that such an investigative step would likely produce at a late stage in our investigation. So they basically said, look, this is going to, if we subpoenaed Trump, it was going to be fought out in the courts for 3 or 4 years, and we didn't want the entire report held up for that reason. And these are just a few of the little highlights that were in the Mueller report. And let's watch this clip. And this is CNN's Chris Cuomo talking to investigative journalist and Pulitzer Prize winner Carl Bernstein. And Bernstein talks about how truly horrific what is revealed and detailed in the Mueller report is, and how the Mueller report, in fact, reveals a vast cover-up.
Well, I think obviously the Attorney General of the United States has thrown his lot in with those who believe that there is a vast conspiracy against the President of the United States. And that he is echoing the line of the White House. I think what's so significant is how different Mueller's report is from how it was characterized in that rather astonishing press conference by the Attorney General. This is a vast narrative of a presidential cover-up. That's really what most of these 400 pages are about, including things having to do with Russia. It explains, I think, why there was so much lying by the president and those around him. And also, I think we're now able to understand from this report how judgments are possible about, one, the conduct of the President of the United States, two, about the conduct of the Attorney General of the United States these past days, three, about the conduct of the investigation that Mr. Mueller conducted. We can make some real judgments about its efficacy and what he found. And fourth, I think we can make some real judgments about the conduct of the press over the past 4 years. And it all comes together. I think this is a great opportunity. I'm still halfway through the report, but reading it, we now have some real clarity, and it's abundantly clear, I believe, that Mr. Mueller intended this vast narrative to go to the Congress of the United States for whatever purposes they saw fit. So this is no exoneration of the President of the United States by a long shot.
I mean, there it is, all right? Like, it's guilty. They held a press conference this morning to tell us that the color black isn't black. You might see a lot in this report talking about the color black, but the color black isn't black. Is it in fact white and green? And in some days, it's yellow and blue. There can't be any red in there because that would make it a rainbow and the vice president. So what was revealed, this press conference held this morning, this unprecedented press conference held at the White House this morning by Acting Attorney General Roy Cohn, where he said, oh, yeah, you know, there's this and that in the report. He continued to describe the contents of the report without releasing it. And once you actually review the report, you see that Bob Barr, Attorney General Bob Barr, thoroughly misrepresented the Mueller report. Bob Barr needs to be impeached on that basis alone. Beyond that, you also have to ask the question of exactly what's going on with the Republican Party. Is their party just so beholden to Trump that they're going to continue to drive over the cliff like lemmings? When is a Republican going to stand up? Let's watch this clip. This is more of Carl Bernstein on Chris Cuomo asking the question about how long are the Republicans going to believe and remain beholden to Trump.
I don't either, and it goes back to something my colleague Bob Woodward wrote in his book about this president, and the reason why Mattis, McMaster, Tillerson, others left serving this president, because they believed he is not capable of serving the national interest of the United States, not capable, in fact, he's a danger to the national security of the United States. And that, too, comes through this report. So you have to ask, at a certain point, when does a political party become beholden so much to a kind of self-interest of one man that it abandons its own principles about putting the country first in terms of what our system of laws has always been about in this country. This is an opportunity. If real, smart, able Republicans read this report, I think they can make some sophisticated judgments about their president. It's not pretty. It is an ugly, damning piece of business.
So also, I want to check in with Chris Cuomo speaking to CNN reporter Jim Acosta. And it's kind of like where I started the top of the show today. Trump says he's fucked.
In 2017, after the appointment of the special counsel, Robert Mueller, one of the key portions of this Mueller report, it talks about the president's reaction to all of that. And he slumped back in his chair, according to the report, and said, "Oh, my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. I'm effed." Obviously, we don't want to use that expletive there. We should point out, Chris, that just a little while ago, we talked to the White House counselor, Kellyanne Conway, somebody you're familiar with, and she was asked about all of this. And Kellyanne Conway said that she has never heard the president talk about things in this fashion, that he's never expressed those thoughts in her presence.
It's time for that stuff to end, Jimmy. It's time for that stuff to end. The report is out. We know what they say. He said they can spin all they want. They're telling all of us there's nothing in this. That is BS, and they know it. If you want to stick to criminality, fine. But if they want to say there's no proof of wrongdoing by the president or anyone around him, they're going to be in for a long life of quotes being thrown in their face.
And I will tell you, Chris, the BS meters have been going off today over here at the White House in the press room. That was one of those moments. Another one of those moments was when I pressed Kellyanne Conway on the Trump Tower meeting in 2016, because one of the things that she said when she came out to the cameras is that, there was no collusion, no conspiracy. But what the Mueller report clearly lays out, and you were just talking about this a few moments ago, is that there were these inappropriate contacts.
100%.
Unless you are the most diehard Trump Republican, I suppose you might say, well, that's not inappropriate. But just about everybody else in the world knows that that's inappropriate.
Look,
and that you shouldn't do something like that.
You can.
Yeah, there it is. So now here's the deal, yo. It's going to take several days to unpack even this heavily redacted version of the Mueller report. And every day, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse for Trump, which is exactly why he didn't want the Mueller report coming out, which is exactly why I didn't want Mueller being able to issue a report, and exactly why the report was kept under wraps for almost a month, so that Trump and his crew of open criminal felons could try to imprint a different narrative on the American public and create an echo chamber of this narrative. So once the report was released, it would be released into the echo chamber of their bullshit. Well, here's the problem with that, you worthless motherfuckers. I can read. You get it? I can fucking read, you piece of shit. Okay, here's what I can tell you. The green tea isn't working. I want to thank y'all all for tuning. Also I want to encourage you to subscribe. Hit subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, you know you be loving what we be doing here. So hit subscribe and check it out. And if you're in Los Angeles tomorrow night, Friday, April 19th, come to the World Stage. Check it out, worldstage.org. It's a celebration. I'm going to be performing my record, American Fool. It's in large part a response to trying to find, love and happiness in a time of Trump. And what we did on this record was myself and the composer went and stalked culture and beauty and love. And we stalked it for a long minute, for almost a couple of years to make this record. And we recorded it. And we named it American Fool. So I hope to see some of y'all all tomorrow night in Los Angeles. It's the only show of the year in Los Angeles. If you don't make it tomorrow night, you're going to have to wait until next March. But that's going to be a dope show, too. Me and my boy, Philly Phil. What you know about that? Ace Hotel next March. More on that later. Thanks y'all all for tuning in. Be kind to each other. You never know what burden someone is carrying. Please hit subscribe to the show. You can also follow me using the handle @JerryQuickly on Twitter. Again, that's @JerryQuickly on Twitter. I be loving y'all all. You be getting me through the hard times. That's it. We're in this together. You understand? We're linked on this, y'all. Arm to arm, shoulder to shoulder, locked at the hip, no daylight between. We're going to do this, y'all. We can do it for sure. We're not going to let these bastards take it. We're not going to let these bastards take it all. It's time not to take something back, because I'm not trying to go back in time. It's time for us to leverage this country forward. Enough with this white supremacist bullshit. That's it, y'all. Till next week.